Welcome back. Microsoft is updating its Windows software for smartphones, and one feature in that update makes it easier for drivers to reduce distractions. The driving mode will automatically silence incoming calls and texts so that you can focus on the road. You can also configure the feature to automatically send out a reply to say that you are driving, and what the driving mode won't do is block outgoing calls or texts. Joining us with more on this new feature and what it means in the fight against distracted driving, Don Lindsay with AAA and Dan Thompson with Claris Networks. And Don, let's start with you. We've heard a lot from AAA about distracted driving, but remind our viewers just what a problem it is.
Well, just in Knox County alone, in the past, for 2012 and year-to-date 2013, there have been 637 crashes involving some sort of distraction. It could be texting, it could be anything like that, but anything that the police officer identified as a distraction, 637 crashes. Now, that's a lot of time, a lot of money, some injuries, and it is a huge problem in Knox County alone. Expand that across the country, and we're looking at thousands and thousands of crashes that eat up time, eat up resources, and in some cases cause serious harm.
And we've heard the statistics, but may even outrank driving under the influence is a problem.
It could be. That's a very tough thing to figure out, because in that mix you've got people who are not going to admit that they were doing something, and really the first distraction that we have is our own minds. When we're driving along just looking, I'm looking at the camera now, but if I'm thinking about something else, I might not even see that camera.
So Dan, let's turn to you, and we've heard this solution in the past with some apps, but so this is different, and explain the difference.
Yeah, so what Microsoft has done is try to make this a little bit more of an automatic action, right? So Apple has their Do Not Disturb mode, which is obviously manual. You have to turn it on. There are various apps for Android. Again, it's manual. You have to turn it on. So what Microsoft is trying to do is take a step and say, hey, if your phone is put into or is paired with a Bluetooth device that would be like something in your car, like a headset or the car itself, the phone will turn itself into this driving mode, which then, as you mentioned, silences texts and phone calls. There obviously is still the ability to make outgoing calls and outgoing text messages, which I would personally argue is probably a little bit more of a distraction. Also, there's the conversation of you can disable this, so will people now become distracted by trying to disable it while they're driving? You know, so there's lots of things, and at the end of the day, we as users of technology just have to say, hey, it's just not that important, whatever it is, a phone call or a text, either one, it's just not that important to risk lives. I mean, wait 15 minutes, you'll be where you're going. Put your phone, like I do, I put it in my cup holder and just leave it there until I'm wherever I'm going.
How good are we at convincing people that that's what you're supposed to do, John?
Tough to know, because right now we do know that people are out there right as we speak, texting, driving, and doing that kind of thing. And yet we've talked about this forever and a day. Now, what is probably happening, though, is people are at least more aware of the danger than they used to be. We are a country of do as I say, not as I do when it comes to driving safety. But the more we hammer on it, the better off we'll be. Behaviors can change, and I think we'll, as long as we keep this going, a combination of education, enforcement, and we'll make some difference here.
And do you ever anticipate this could become law in some states, as we've seen with the use of headsets when you're driving? There are some places where California in particular, where if you get pulled over and you aren't using a headset, you face a ticket.
It could. I think that the technology will have to become much more reliable and much more pervasive for that to happen. Right now, as you say, Apple has a Do Not Disturb, and this Microsoft thing is coming along, and there's some apps out there, but those would have to be really well set in before lawmakers would be willing to risk the ire of their constituents to have that kind of law.
And Dan, as you mentioned, there are some hiccups. It's not seamless right now.
That's right.
But will the technology get us there, in your opinion?
Well, so the technology actually exists already to know if the phone is in motion, right, because the GPS. So you could say, if my phone is moving at 30 miles an hour, you assume that I'm in a car, so go ahead and silence it. So there are things that I could see technology developers in the future, you know, kind of grabbing onto. I think it's a great idea, personally, to talk a second about what you were talking about with California. Just got back from California a couple weeks ago, and I had friends there, and they were adamant about, oh gosh, put that phone down. Like, you know what, I don't want to get caught. So they've done a good enough job that people are at least aware of it and thinking of it. Not to say that it doesn't exist anymore, but I mean, for friends who are obviously my generation, who are probably the problem people, right? It at least got their attention.
Thank you both for the conversation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Coming up next, we're going to talk about East Tennessee and the weather, in particular October.